Ribbit. All right. If I could get in the go here. Someone had a comment and was asking about live code example. I really don't know what they mean. I figured I'd give it a go anyway. So I'm going to start up sbcl on this side. It does not need to be done this way, but I think it's just easier to explain. So when I think of live code, I think of Fluxus first, then maybe something like overtone. But I don't know exactly what they're asking. But for me, the basics would have to be that you'd have to have the REPL still running. So you might have to quick load Slink if you don't already have it. I think I already have it installed, so I'm just going to require it, or else you'd have to quick load it like that. And then after I require that, what I'm going to do is start a Slink server over here on the sbcl side. And then I can come over here to Emacs and then use slide to connect to that Slink server. So MetaX, I'll turn the keycast on, I guess. I don't know if anybody cares about that, but now I'll say slide connect. And then it'll ask me, I'm going to choose localhost, and I put the port to be 4006. So this should connect over there. And to do something like this, it's almost natural for me just to use a REPL, but I guess it's nice for me to save this stuff. I don't know what to call this, but let's just say like update loop while running Lisp maybe. And that way there's like reference not just to these videos, but like some text also. So I'd say the first thing is not to lock the REPL up is the most important part if I want to use the REPL. So that's why I'm using two different ones, I guess you could say, to demonstrate this one way. So I guess I'll start off by maybe needing a loop of some sort. And maybe first I'll do it inside a function and then outside of a function. So let me just defun. I don't know. Let me just make some sounds maybe. So listen to me. And then we'll make a loop. And then I'll just make it an infinite loop, but give it a when. Oops, so let's say like when kill loop. Let's just call it kill loop. Return. And I'm just going to return. Okay. And then I guess now I'll need another function. So to call. And so let me just say like maybe make sound. So create a function called make sound. So define make sound. And then it just gives us a format t tilde tilde percent for a new line. And then I'm just going to give it sound. My shift key is going out, so I'm often making mistakes when I need a shift key, especially passwords. And then I'm using a global variable that's not defined there. So I still need to make a global variable And I'll just put these up top in case I do more than one. And so we'll do sound. And well, let's just make a sound at ribbit. So then we come back over here to this. That's closing that. Now I'm going to call the make sound function there. And I didn't compile any of this stuff, so I'm going to hit Control C, Control K. And it's complaining because I didn't define kill loop. So let's go to the top. And just make kill loop. And make this nil. And then try to compile that again. All right. Well, I'll stay over here. And then on this side, notice some of the stuff came up whenever I connected. And you can still run stuff, it just doesn't look like it. A lot of times I'll just hit something like 1 or plus 1, 1 or something, and then now you can see the normal thing you'd expect sitting here. And then let me call that from this side. So listen to me. Okay, so that's going way too fast. So what I'll do is come over here, and I'm just going to set f kill loop to be true, and then copy that and do 1 for nil, so I can toggle back and forth. And I'll just hit Control C on that. And then this broke me out of that loop. So I guess the first thing I need to do is do a sleep here, or else it's just going to be too obnoxious. And in that case, I just maybe put like a sleep after this sound here. Let's say sleep, I don't know, maybe 3. And I'll just compile that and then call this function again. And then notice it just broke out immediately. So I need to switch this back to nil. So I'm going to Control C on that, and then come over here. And then now we have a loop going. And then to update that, let's say, let's create another sound. So we can just come down here and say set f sound, and then make it a croak. And then I'll just copy that. And then I'm going to change this into ribbit. And let's just say squeak. Squeak. And so if I was to execute this right here, then notice over here it updated from doing ribbits to squeaks. And if I was to do the same thing over here, Control C, then when the next loop goes around, it's going to start croaking. Now, I'm inside this function, which is inside this loop. And I want to say even if I wasn't inside a function, this wouldn't matter. But let's just say for now, I'm in this function. And so if I was to change this function, let's just say I want to print jump here. And then I recompile that with Control C. Notice that the next time this runs, it's not going to change. And every once in a while I have to change this, or else you're not going to be able to tell that it's still running, I guess. But it didn't do anything. So if I was to come over here and kill this, and then after it does its wait, now I'm going to set this, and then I'm going to recompile this. And then I'm going to make this run again over here. Then notice it said jump. And so now it's saying jump, croak. So I had to I had to restart this function for this to update. So I want to get rid of this line. And then I'm going to kill this function. Because even if I compile it right now, it's still going to keep saying jump over here every time it runs. So I'll set this to true so it kills it. Set this back to nil, and then rerun this. Well, if you noticed, setting that to true didn't stop because I did it too fast. Because there's a sleep here. So I gotta wait. Okay, so now I can set this back. And then I'll run this again. Then I'll come over here and I'll run this function again. So although I can't change this, let me instead, real quick, make another function. Instead of having to add a bunch of different functions in here to be able to manipulate, let's just add a new function called defun. I'll call it fun caller. It doesn't need any arguments. And then for right now, let's put make sound in here. And that's all I need. I'm going to compile that. And then let me kill this again. So kill this. And then instead of calling make sound, I'm going to call fun caller. So compile that, turn this back to nil, and then run this again. And so we still have our croak running. And so we can come over here and change this. Now, we're changing the global variables that this function's using. But we can also change this function too. So now we're using fun caller. So now I can put several functions inside here. So just to change this, let's say, I'll put like a dot dot right here, let's say. And then recompile that. And then the next time it runs, it should start adding the dot dots here. So I can change by the functions also. And then maybe we'll make another function. And for like the animal that's making that sound. And so I'll just say like I am a, and then here say format T. And then I am a tilde. So and then I'll put a space here. I mean, it really doesn't matter if I mess up, because I can just update it while it's running anyway. And then I'm gonna compile this, but there's no animal yet. So it's not gonna give me any errors, but it does give me a warning. So I'm just gonna come over here and I'll just type it out. Oops. And then animal. And then what are we doing right now? Ribbiting. So let's just say frog. I mean, technically only one frog ribbits. I think it's like a Baja, California chorus tree frog or something like that. And so actually, like, a lot of people see ribbit and don't know what that means when they're from other countries. But there's an American frog that used to be called, like, categorized as a Pacific tree frog, and that's the only frog in the world that ribbits. The only species. And it lives near Hollywood, so Hollywood made some movies and TV shows back in the 60s or something that use that frog sound, so Americans know it as a ribbit, nobody else does really. So right here, it's going to get to the point where you can't even tell it's updating anymore. Like now when it runs, you can't even tell. So I'm just going to change that to be a different sound. So let's change that to a croak. And then the animal could still be a frog in that case. And now I have this right here that I already compiled. So now let me just throw this inside fun caller. And I guess it would go before the other one. So I am a, let's say, I'll compile that. Now you can see right here, it automatically updated this side right here, because this loop is calling this function, and this function's just throwing all the other functions that I want inside there. And so then now, if I was to come over here and set some different ones, let's say like setf, animal, and I guess I could use a toad, because a toad or a frog could croak. Setf, animal, be the frog, which I have. And then I also had a squeak, which is, I guess, a mouse. I don't know, there's a rat squeak too? I think so. So if I Control C on that one, no, it's saying I'm a mouse, so I croak. But I could easily come over here and just do this. And then after that, it's going to be a mouse squeaking. So I guess that's my idea of what you would need to be able to do any kind of live coding, really, if I'm understanding this person's question correctly, is you're going to have some way to run something so you can see like whatever's happening, graphics or sound or whatever, but then also be able to manipulate this stuff. And so now I'm just going to kill this loop. So let's kill this. I'm going to actually wait for it to stop. And then I'm going to change this back. But now I'm not going to use that at the moment, let's say. And then let me change this to be, how do I want to do this? Let me say Control X1. Or, you know, I could just do it down here maybe. It'll just be different than what I'm used to doing. Well, just so we can see the code. Let me Control X1 this. Oops. I hit a mouse click and it didn't work, so. And then here I'll say Control X2. Control X3 actually to split this way. And on this side I want to Control X2 to split it this way. And then I'll say both REPLs on this side maybe. Well, maybe I'll use the REPL that's running over here actually. So I'm going to put one REPL over here. So Control XB and put my Sly REPL over here, let's say. I'm going to use my code up top there. And then over here, I'm going to start a new REPL. Which, it's probably going to move it over here, which is annoying, but we'll see. So, Alt-X, Sly, oops. Alt-X, Sly, I think it's mREPL new. And then it's asking me for a nickname down here. So I'm going to put it like TEPL for test REPL, I guess. And then of course it put it where I didn't want it. So here I'm going to say Control XB to get back over here. And then right here I'll say Control XB. And then now I should have the two separate ones. This is a new one. And you can see down here, this is the TEPL, and this is the Sly mREPL, let's say. So I should be able to rerun this over here this time. So listen to me, let's say. And if okay, it's not doing anything. So more than likely what's happening is, since I'm inside this Sly, it needs the finished output. And I don't know, it's just something I guess you have to know by experience. So I'm going to come over here and kill my loop, and it'll probably show up over here. So Control C here. And see how these things popped up just now? I want to say before my sleep is where I want to call this. So I'll just say finish output. And notice that was working in the sbcl REPL perfectly fine. It's just, you know, Sly. And there's differences between Sly and Slime, so Slime may or may not have done this correctly, but Sly changes a lot, so it might work one day and the next day it doesn't after you update it, so you never know. So I'm going to recompile this and then call this again. And then, of course, I have to update this to be nil. And then now I can call this. And now notice that it's working correctly. So it's the exact same thing is going to be able to happen over here. Like I can change this to a toad, and I can change my sound to a croak. So everything is working the same. So I just wanted to show you could do it inside this or inside this. And then notice this is, I set up a new REPL over here. So I can still type over here too. So like if I was to say, you know, set f animal to be a bird, and if I put it in quotes instead, then they won't all cap it. And if I also say set f sound to be chirp, Then now we have bird chirping over here. And then I guess I could also kill this loop. So if I was to say, of course it's easier just to come over there and kill it. Control C, but just to do it a different way. And so now we'll kill our loop, which now stops this guy from running. Then maybe the only other thing to go over too is, in here I have it in a function, this loop. So it's acting a little bit different than if it wasn't in a loop. So I'm just going to Control Alt space, and then I'll highlight everything I want to get out of there. And then I'm just going to come over here and paste this. Just let me re-indent that in case it's not correct. And then I'm going to Control C this. And what that's going to do is in the main REPL, it will start running. Of course, I first need to tell it not to be killing it. So now if I compile this again, notice that now, because I took this out of a function, it's just a loop sitting here. I can use the same REPL and I don't even need the extra one over here. So if I was just to come over here and say, I guess this is a matter of preference because now your prompt that you're typing in is moving around. But if I was to say set animal and change it to like Baja California forest tree frog, let's say, which is the frog I was talking about. That's the only one that actually makes a ribbit sound. And then set sound to be ribbit. And then now I can sit here and manipulate it as it runs in the same side, the same REPL, let's say. And I don't know, like, I guess that's all I have to say. If this isn't what the question was about, then I would need to get more information. So now I can just say set kill loop to T ribbit